Good evening, members. Good evening, gentlemen. And welcome to this meeting of Plans East. I must first read this announcement. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by such third parties. If you are seated in the lower public seating area, it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, you should move to the upper public gallery. For the purposes of this meeting and the webcast, I would like to make the introductions. My name is Councillor Paul Kesker, and I am chairman of tonight's meeting. To my left is Heather Brady, who is my vice chairman. To her left is Vivienne Messenger from Democratic Services. And to my right is Jerry Godden, Senior Planning Officer, who will be presenting the applications. And the webcast is in the capable hands, I believe, of Rebecca Morton, who is sitting right at the end. We'll now take item 2, advice to public and speakers. I take it that has been done, Vivienne?
It has, Chairman.
Thank you. Number 3 is minutes, members from our last meeting. Can I take them as a true record and sign them? Thank you very much. 4 is apologies for absence. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Vivienne.
Councillor Whitbread?
Say apologies for lateness from Councillor Jane MacGyver and Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Thank you. I'd be surprised if Councillor MacGyver is going to attend. I think it'd be, well, above and beyond the call of duty, that one then. Okay, apologies for absence. Vivienne, please.
Chairman, I've received apologies from Councillors Bedford, Rolfe, Stalker and Jones.
Thank you. Number 5 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest tonight? No, thank you very much. Number 6, any other business? Do we have any other business?
None, Chairman.
Thank you. In which case, item 7 is to take note of the Epping Forest District Council Planning Policy Briefing Note, dated October 2021, an updated version, which we must take into consideration in making our decisions. Number 8, site visits. Are any members calling for a site visit on anything that is on tonight's agenda? No, thank you very much. In which case we will go on to number 9, which is planning application 1080, land at the rear of 287 to 291 High Street, Epping. I would just mention that a number of councillors did go to a site visit here, which I was unfortunately unable to attend, but I would like to thank them all for turning out to visit the site. Right, Jerry, if you please.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for one 3-storey building with two residential units in it and one 2-storey building with one residential unit in it. This is a SAC case and it has been around for some considerable time. Just hopefully get this shared. This is an area in the heart of Epping, basically. The council offices are in this area here with the council car parks there, and the site backs onto that and is part of the shop frontage running along the High Street. And as you can see, it's quite a narrow but long strip of land. There is built-up properties at the front and as well, and the plan, or the application rather, is to develop this area of grassland at the back of the property into the 2 units. This is looking to the front, entrance between the Black Lion and the shop. And this is at the rear, and this is the area that will be built on if permission is given. There is a tree in the area which has protection because it's within the Epping Town Centre Conservation Area and is one of the considerations that will be dealt with. This is a picture of the site, basically as it is at the moment, is walls on both sides and overgrown scrub plus the tree in the conservation area. A previous planning application in 2017 was refused. That was appealed and the inspector went with the council's refusal and refused it, and there's a number of comments from that appeal actually in the officer's report, where the inspector said that there were problems, where he said that there weren't problems, and where there was a way forward for the applicant. The applicant has now come back with a revised scheme. This is the ground floor unit. You can see the existing commercial unit, and then there's a dwelling on this site where the cursor is. There'll be some replacement planting and then a further block here. Then you've got the upper and first floor roof plans, and then you have the elevations of each building from the courtyard. This is the three-storey property which is closest to the rear elevation of the shop that it's coming from, and then there's the elevation of the two-storey building. This is looking at both together, so you can see that the building towards the back of the site is considerably lower in height than the main build, or the three-storey building at this point. And this gives you the elevations of both buildings. This is the side, this one here, close to the shop that's given it away into the actual building line of the property. And then the site goes down somewhat, and then you have the two-storey building. There are dormers in the window on this property here on the side looking towards the east, which, as in looking towards the council offices. The other side doesn't have those. This shows the lie of the land with the existing brick wall and the Black Lion pub as well. There will be a green roof on the smaller of the two buildings, and there is a gap of some 6.5 metres, or just under 6.5 metres between the two. This shows the northeast view, again basically looking from the council offices down to the site. You can see the background is the rather large modern building which is greyed out, and the scheme is this building here and this building here, and this part will have a green roof, and we have this will be a wooden roof with these dormer windows. For completeness, this is the layout of this scheme that's been approved for the redevelopment of the council car park and the Condor building. The property is here, so there will be properties now backing onto it, but there aren't any windows in the elevation that would look onto it. But that gives you an idea of how the properties are going to be laid out with the new scheme. So the application has received a number of objections. Just scrolling down to get them. The Town Council objected on this overdevelopment of the land, little amenity space and no parking, cannot support residential accommodation at ground floor to the rear of a retail premises to protect the vitality and viability of Epping High Street. The Epping Society has also objected. We had 6 objections back in 2019, and this consultation was re-carried out in November of this year, and 3 objections received, which are laid out in the officer's report at page 34. It should be noted that there's no parking provided with this property. It is a car-free scheme, and in terms of the principle of that is acceptable in an urban area such as Epping that has got good public transport links, and you can see that there's no highway objections to the lack of parking, and the applicant has offered conditions to assist with that as well, should it be felt there to be necessary. In terms of the principle of development in this site, it is an urban site, and there is no principal reason to not grant planning permission for this. It's an excellent use of urban land, and it's where we should be developing rather than developing on greenbelt sites. And both the inspector and the planning officers agree that this is a good site to redevelop. Of course, the question then goes down to the details of the application. It is within the conservation area, which is an important consideration, and it's next to a listed building being the Black Lion. Considerable work has been undertaken between the applicant and the conservation team at Epping Forest. And as you will see from the plans, the original scheme was 2 very high, tall blocks of frankly somewhat stark appearance, and they have revised these schemes to reduce the second block down and include a green roof on it, and the first block has been redesigned to partly lower the heart, but also to have a more sympathetic urban design when looking at the buildings in the high street, albeit it is on the rear elevation. And it's also been taken into account its effect on the Black Lion. But as you can see in the officer's report, the conservation team now support this application and raise no objection in terms of the impact on the conservation area and the adjacent listed building. In terms of amenity, the officers have gone through that in their report as well. The amenity space is clearly limited. However, having said that, it's a redevelopment of a constrained urban site, and it is considered that this wouldn't be a reason to refuse it. There is some amenity space, and they're also within easy access of the Lower Staines Recreation Ground and Stonards Hill. In terms of trees and landscape, our Council's tree officers have assessed the tree itself and have no objections to it being removed, as it is not worthy of retention and certainly wouldn't survive the works. But there is a landscaping scheme to plant some smaller trees on it to green the area as well. And in terms of the special area of conservation, this has now been assessed and it would be subject, if members are minded to grant permission tonight, to a legal agreement under the Section 106 to make a financial contribution. But basically this doesn't cause any harm to the Epping Forest Special Area of Conservation with the various contributions and assessments now made. So in conclusion, it is considered that this is an acceptable scheme, and we do recommend the grant of planning permission subject to a Section 106 agreement.
Thank you very much. Is this in the local plan?
Yes, indeed it is. Sorry, I should have said that, but yes, this is an allocated site in the local plan as well, so it meets the policy guidance on that. So it's an urban area and in the local plan as well. So yes.
Okay, thank you. We have 3 speakers on this item. Our first speaker is Mr. Ken Faulkner, who is an objector and who has 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Before you, an amended scheme from one dismissed by appeal on the letter on the 22nd of August 2018. The inspector dismissed that appeal for 2 main reasons: the effect on the character and appearance of the Epping Conservation Area and the living conditions of existing and future occupiers. The site is located within the setting of the Grade 2 listed Black Lion pub, which is an important element of the conservation area and must be preserved as the oldest building in Epping High Street. Under the National Planning Policy Framework Section 199 and the 1990 Planning Act Section 66, the District Council have a statutory duty to ensure that any development within a conservation area preserves or enhances the character or appearance of the conservation area. In the absence of a report from the Conservation Officer, it is evident that this statutory duty has not been considered. The Inspector report stated, whilst the immediate setting of the Black Lion is a developed, mostly urban area, there is a sense of openness around its rear elevations, which allows appreciation of its particular architectural features and acknowledges the positive contribution it makes to the history of the High Street. This amended proposal still dominates the Grade 2 listed building to its detriment. The scale, density, massing and height are barely changed from the previous scheme rejected on appeal and still take away the sense of openness. The 3-storey block still towers 2 stories above the rear section of the pub and is taller than the surrounding buildings, and the amended 2-storey block is built totally beyond the existing building line. Please study the elevation drawings. The inspector further stated in an appeal decision that the development would highly be visible from the car park and the seating area to the rear of the Black Lion pub, again to its detriment. This still applies. As a result, it would fail to either preserve, enhance the character or appearance of the conservation area as the law requires. To summarise, the modest amendment to the original scheme dismissed on appeal are not, in my opinion, of sufficient merit to overcome the previous objections rightly expressed by the planning inspector. Finally, since this design was put forward, the Council have approved development of the Conda site by Qualis. If this development is approved, the picture windows from the rear block will directly overlook the rear windows and gardens from the new house. The windows will be only 10 metres apart, a distance that I am possibly from your chairman. This is contrary to policy DBE2, having an effect on the living conditions of the future occupiers. I hope for these reasons and the site itself, the committee will reject this application and continue to protect our important Epping conservation area, without which this town will die. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Could I ask you to turn your microphone off? Thank you. Our second speaker by Zoom is Councillor Nigel Avey of Epping Town Council.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, in the first instance, I'd welcome Mr. Faulkner's comments and support them. Having the opportunity to review the report of the planning officer before this meeting, I appreciate the allocation of this site for residential development in the local plan submission version is in planning terms a potential trump card. However, the Town Council still considers this site too small for what is proposed, and the proposed development amounts to overdevelopment of this tiny, thin strip of land. We appreciate it is brownfield site, however, not all brownfield sites are suitable. We would argue this is the case here. Furthermore, the Town Council is concerned about the development's effect on heritage assets nearby, namely the Black Lion Public House, as mentioned by Mr. Faulkner, and the location of the development within the conservation area of Epping. I expect we will have well and truly lost the argument about parking on numerous other applications, but the Town Council, and indeed I think residents, will continue to question the logic of developments without any parking provision in a small town where parking is such a current and probably future problem. The Town Council does object to the loss of a tree. I was disappointed to see its removal was seen as a matter of little importance, and we have continually sought to protect trees wherever the Town Council can, and will continue to argue that you shouldn't remove trees unless it's strictly necessary because of disease. I will be interested to hear the comments of committee members who have undertaken a site visit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our third speaker is Donald Messenger, who is the applicant's agent, and you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm the planning agent for the application, and I just wanted to reiterate a few key points about the process we've been through, which resulted in this high-quality proposal. This is currently a vacant and untidy brownfield site that's caused issues for local residents over the few years with illegal dumping, pests and overgrowth. The site is within the town centre and is a perfect, sustainable location for housing. The principle of residential development on the site is supported by planning officers and the planning inspectorate for the previous scheme. It will make a small but important contribution to Epping's supply of housing, which is urgently needed. As you have heard, there's a long history to the site. The previous scheme included 6 new homes and a 3-storey building across the vast majority of the site. Following the council's feedback on the previous application, the applicant has listened and collaboratively worked with the council's planning and design officers to evolve and enhance the scheme. This has included undergoing a full quality review panel with endorsement. This process has been invaluable as we have stepped back, listened and reflected on the feedback. The process has resulted in an enhanced scheme that better reflects the character of the local area. The new proposal is substantially different to the previous application. The number of homes has been halved to 3 from 6. The rear building has been reduced in height to a 2-storey townhouse, and we've moved away from a contemporary design to a building with more traditional approach and materials. We've included a communal courtyard to help knit together this small community, created an extensive green roof to create an attractive appearance, and we now provide a biodiversity net gain. This is now a highly considered design solution that provides a sensitive response to its context and to the Black Lion. It will transform what is a neglected site to provide new homes for families and tidy up the general appearance for all. All the outstanding comments from the planning inspector have now been fully addressed, and the quality review panel supports the new design and reduced massing. Finally, we would just like to thank planning officers, the urban design team and the quality review panel for the hard work and commitment to constructively engaging with us to help evolve and improve the proposal to what is now a high quality scheme that will make a positive contribution to this part of the town centre. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we go on to discussion, I'm sure we have two late arrivals, Councillor Whitbread and Councillor McIver. We're delighted to see you both, Councillor Whitbread.
Thank
no
you, Chair.
declarations of interest.
Thank you, Chairman. No declarations of interest, and apologies for my lateness.
Councillor McIver.
Likewise, Chairman, apologies for my lateness, and of course on this application I will not vote for that reason, and I have no declarations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're delighted to see you. We were unexpected. We didn't think you'd be fit enough to attend, but it's... Right, members, the recommended decision is to grant permission with conditions subject to legal agreement. Who would like to start? Councillor Holly Whitbread.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for the presentations and comments this evening, which I thought were useful. First of all, I've just got a query for the planning officer around the comments on the conservation officer's comments. Would you be able to clarify the speaker's comments around that, please?
Yes, Councillor. The conservation team have given written comments to our planning officer, and they were in support of this application.
Is that okay?
Yeah,
I'll come
please.
back. Thank you. I note the scheme has been revised from the previous application, and I do share some of the town council's concerns around the bulk of this scheme, and I note the importance of this area within the conservation area as one of the most historic buildings in Epping, and actually one of my regular drinking spots. Not to declare an interest on that, as it is a separate site. But whilst I do appreciate the comments, I would note this is within the local plan. I think steps have been taken to try and mould this into the area. It's a good utilisation of a brownfield site. I always have concern when there is no parking, and I would like clarification around any steps which should be taken to make sure that that is adhered to as well. Thank you.
Well, there is no parking provided, Councillor. There is no parking.
Sorry, so to come back on that, is there any opportunity for those residents to have a permit scheme as part of the High Street scheme, or could there be a condition to strengthen that within the application?
Well, there is a proposed condition in the Parking and Highways paragraph about a residential travel information pack for sustainable transport, which members could add in. But at the end of the day, there's no parking provided with this. If anyone did have a car, they'd have to park it in a public car park and pay the cost.
Yeah, come back.
So a condition to say that residents of this development wouldn't be allowed to link into any permit schemes, could that be added? Or would it not be necessary?
It wouldn't be necessary because it would be caught by the restrictions on the permit scheme anyway.
That's it for now.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Chairman. I was one of the 5 that attended the site visit. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a waste of time because the planning officer hadn't got the plans with her. So all we could see was the bit of land where they were going to be. So we couldn't see, and it's the first time I've seen what the building's going to be like. So it's a very tight application site. I personally feel it's overdevelopment of a small site. But a couple of questions for the planning officer. The access to the property is only down the side of the Black Lion? There's no rear access?
Yep.
No, the access once the building is built is only by the Black Lion through the front access, yes.
Access for building, will that be at the back then? Because it's private ground at the back, isn't it?
Well, that would be a matter for the developer to resolve, but they would need to negotiate with whoever currently owned the car park, whether that was still council or the Black Lion, etc. If they wanted to go through that, otherwise they'll have to take everything through the pedestrian access, but that's a matter for them.
The other question was the refuse. Where is that going to be going? Is that going to have to go out the front? Down the back?
There is refuse shown on the plans, a refuse point on the plans, and it would be down in, sorry, I'm just getting it. So there would be a bin store, and that would be, I don't know, to be honest, whether the residents would take it out onto the high street or whether the rubbish people would go down the alleyway and pick it up. But there is a bin store shown. I'm sorry, and I've noted your point about the officer not having plans. Unfortunately, officers have got very limited access to printers, and obviously plans can be quite difficult to show on laptops, but I've noted that for discussion with our team.
Okay, a good point. Okay, thank you. Councillor John Whitehouse?
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, I went on the site visit as well, and I think the reduction from 6 to 3 does make a significant difference, and it does bring it in line with what the local plan says. I think the major damage to the setting of the conservation area probably comes from development behind here on the Old Condor site rather than this site itself. I mean, the parking, as Councillor Avey said, is a well-worn path that we've been down before. The applicant mentioned the quality review panel, and I couldn't find a reference to that anywhere in the report. I was going to ask a conservation officer a question as well, and that's been asked already. But just clarify what the response to the quality review panel was.
I'll have to look at the background documents for that if you give me a minute.
Okay, perhaps we could go on while he's looking that up. Could we go on to the next councillor? That's Councillor Phillip.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll try and keep this fairly brief. I think the key parts, indeed, as Councillor Avey pointed out, it is allocated in the local plan, has gone through main modifications without any main modifications on it. Interestingly, actually, in the local plan, it is indicated with an approximate net capacity of 6, so bringing it down to 3 is significantly reducing the built form on it. It is certainly worth developing on brownfield site rather than greenbelt. I think we're all in favour of that. A number of other things that have already been through the inspector in terms of the previous appeal, so things like the access down the side, only being the pedestrian access, the inspector indicated that was completely adequate. The lack of parking, the inspector said, was completely adequate. The refuse area, the inspector said, was completely adequate. It strikes me, just looking at it purely practically, that there really isn't any planning reason, given that it's allocated in the local plan, that we can use to say no to this one. And as such, I will be supporting it.
Okay, thank you. And of course, since that time, planning has been given for the development of the car park in the rear of it to a very substantial degree. Jerry, have you managed to find that? Or?
Not yet, sorry,
Right,
Chair.
okay.
I've no reason to doubt the applicant is correct. I don't know why it's in the report, but I'm still trying to find it.
You're still looking. Councillor Hadley?
Thank you, Chairman. Just one point regarding the access for firefighters. I don't know whether they run in there with the hoses or what. I suspect they have to, because there's no way you get a fire engine down that alleyway. Is that correct?
We don't have our resident fireman on the committee tonight who would be raising that matter.
He would have raised that question.
Yeah, you're obviously standing in for him tonight. Well, the inspector didn't raise any objections to this before. It's sort of almost medieval to be putting houses at the back of others like that, but they've raised no objection. And of course, on terms of lack of parking, we've lost appeal after appeal on that basis. We're never supported by the inspectorate. We've seen too much of it. Councillor McIver.
Thank you, Chairman. I hope members will forgive me if this is included in the report, but I did just have another quick look. Is it worth, because of the location of this scheme, should we be mindful to grant permission for there to be the cleaning of the tyres, only because it is so on the work vehicles that are used, only because of where it is located? But I'm not sure if that's already in there.
that isn't our problem. We're simply talking about the principle of development. So how they do it is not our problem. Right, Jerry, have we got something?
Yes, I found reference in the design and access statement to the design review panel and the quality review panel. So yes, I mean the applicant is right that they definitely went through those processes.
Okay.
And sorry, if I probably for Councillor McIver with the wheel washing that on this site because of its constraints, it would be impossible because they'd probably have to get a permit to park on the highway to move materials through. So yeah, we just wouldn't be work.
Councillor Whitehouse, would you like to come back?
Well, if it's impossible, why is condition 7 there, which talks about wheel washing? But I mean, I think the point of the quality review panel is...
Speak a bit nearer the microphone, I'm sorry.
Sorry. There is actually a wheel washing condition number 7. If it is impossible, perhaps it shouldn't be there, but I don't see why they can't install wheel washing facilities in the whatever construction compound they'll presumably hire from a neighbouring landowner.
Hold on, Jerry, hold on. I'm going to let Councillor Phillip come back on that one first, and then to you.
It wasn't actually on that one, Chairman. It was just something that has been drawn to my attention. This is on the high road in Epping, and on a Monday on the high road in Epping we have the market. Perhaps we should consider that in terms of hours of operation. If there's construction work, it shouldn't happen on the high road on a Monday. Clearly, if they're coming in from behind, if they can come to commercial agreement with Qualis, and I should probably declare an interest on that as the client side of Qualis, but if they come to commercial agreement with Qualis to access through Qualis's site, that is a different matter.
Okay. Come on, please.
Yes, yes, I can see there is a wheel washing there. I think that's rather a boilerplate condition. The problem with it is the site actually doesn't have access onto the public highway, so I'm not sure how they can't really get vehicles onto the site anyway. And the problem is, if they don't own the land where they're parking up, then we've got no way of conditioning it. Obviously, Essex Highway Enforcement would need to look at it if they were depositing mud all over the highway, etc. So I can't really see the point of that because of where the building is quite unusually. And the second thing for Councillor Phillips' point is, I hear what you say, but I would probably argue the market's there before builders on a Monday morning, so I can't see it being necessary.
Chairman, if I can come back on that one, I think most of us in this committee have all seen builders' delivery lorries taking complete ignoring of any other things around and just stopping where it suits them. If we have a market in play, particularly with people around, then I would like a condition that avoids them stopping building of lorries on the high road during the period that the market's around.
On money. Yeah, no, please do.
I'm sorry, but again, we come back to the fact it's not within the red line area of the applicant. So we can't put, the applicant has no control over where the lorries would be parked at the front, logically, because it's the public highway and the footpath, which is owned by Essex County Council. We can't impose a condition on him that he's got no control over the land. He needs to have control over the land to actually to put a condition there, because, and the argument would be Essex Highways would then be able to enforce against any breaches there. I accept your next question might be will they, but I'm afraid they're the landowners, not us. Or the applicant.
Then I was trying to put a friendly condition in, Mr. Godden. In that case, I suggest that we put a condition preventing delivery of construction or operation of construction during the hours of the market.
Okay, that would be acceptable, Joe? Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Whitbread.
Yeah, thanks, Chairman. I know I'm not meant to speak because I was late for the meeting, but on the point that Councillor Phillip has just raised, and I agree with most of the points that have been raised this evening, but on the basis of the point that Councillor Phillips just raised, with my recent dealings with UK Power Network, of course, it's the licensing authority for the highways, which would be Essex County Council, and I think it's important that we have a note on our planning recommendations, as Councillor Phillip has just agreed. But I wonder if we should write to Essex Highways and make them aware that when they come to licence any delivery of goods closing that part of the highway, because they may have to shut parts, that we should be looking for them to make sure there's no deliveries on a Monday. Otherwise it will cause chaos. And we also have to bear in mind down there, it's not just a pub and clientele at a pub for pedestrian access. There's also a doctor's surgery as well, and we're not paying due regard to that within the, if we don't make sure that we regulate properly. There were lots of residents down there, old people walking along, and I can just see, even with small builders' lorries and small vans, you could create chaos.
Right, a good point. Would you like to propose your additional condition then, Councillor Phillip?
Yes, I'd like to restrict hours of construction to avoid the normal hours of construction, but adding the hours of operation of the Epping market.
Okay, do we have a seconder? That's it, Councillor Holly Whitbread. In which case, members, can we vote to add that condition in to those that have already listed? Those in favour, please show.
Unanimous, Chairman.
Against? No.
No, it was unanimous.
No, but there was one abstention that I saw, two abstentions.
They're late people.
That's true. Well, in which case that condition will be added, and can we ask that a note is sent to Essex Highways on this?
Yes, I'll have the case officer write them a letter.
Okay, thank you. Well, members, if no one else wishes to speak on this, we have the proposal to... Oh, sorry?
Councillor Macready.
Right, Councillor Macready, do apologise, didn't see your hand there.
It's because I'm short. Thank you, Chairman. I'm just slightly concerned. I've seen what's been happening as the garages in Charles Street are being revamped, refurbished, whatever it is they're doing. The damage that happens to the pavements. Do we have provision here that any damage that happens to the pavements on our high street, they will correct? Thank you.
I have a feeling I know the answer to that, but I'm going to let Jerry come back on it.
You're quite right, Councillor. You do know the answer to this. Yes, I'm afraid that is not something we can deal with. It is the landowner's responsibility to claim back from the company damage, and the landowner in this instance would be Essex Highways. We can only put conditions on like that if the applicant owned that bit of land, and as they don't, there is no way we can condition it.
Okay. Yes, I did know that, yes. In which case, members, I think we should go to the vote. The proposal is to grant permission with conditions, including the additional condition we have voted on. All those in favour, please show.
Nine, Chairman.
Those against?
3.
And abstentions?
3.
In which case, planning permission is granted. Oh, subject to the Section 106 agreement, which is part of the documentation. In which case, we'll go on to item 10, which is application 2257, 67 Hemnall Street, Epping. And we have here Robin Hellier, who is our tree officer. Is he going to lead on this?
I'm going to get it up and then he can talk it through. If
Okay.
Robin, if you want me to go to the next slide, just say next slide and I'll move them across.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. Right, thank you, Chairman. Hope everyone can hear me all right.
No, sorry. Hang on a sec, Robin. Shared the wrong thing.
That's fine. Right. Okay.
I think you can start now.
Are we all set? Thank you. Thank you, Chairman. First slide shows the site at 67 Hemnall Street. Nicely gestured there, Jerry. Thank you. We have not the greatest drawing there, but the site of the lime tree in question, where this application seeks to conduct some crown management to the lowest parts of this very fine lime tree, its canopy, by pruning the pendulous and the lowest spreading branches, aiming to raise the crown's apron we like to call apron, the lowest fringe, if you like, of the crown, to 5 to 6 meters above ground level. So this is the tree in question, within a very well-treed residential street. A fine specimen, as you can see, close to the front boundary, and approximately 20 meters tall. I think the photograph slightly foreshortens its height, but anyway, a big tree of note, elegant, and a very valuable landscape asset within the street scene. I'm sure everyone would agree. Yes, this is set slightly back again in context with other good mature trees. So having discussed the application with the tree surgeon agent, the reasons that weren't mentioned within the application form were, as you might be able to see here with the tree in full leaf, the lowest 2 to 3 meters of the tree overhangs the pavement and has undergone some previous pruning, partly in the distant past, but also more recently, where the spread has extended over and towards the highway. The reason it's come before the committee is the volley and the number of objections, which I can summarise, hopefully, that the Epping Town Council felt that the level of pruning was unacceptable, likely to cause irreparable damage, which results possibly in the ultimate demise of the tree. The neighbour at 69 was objecting to the grotesquely excessive works proposed, and there is likely damage to such large-scale cutting, and it will affect negatively the tree's naturally drooping habit, is the word described. And similarly, 65 Hemnall Street felt that the aggressive lifting of the crown would be detrimental to the tree's health and appearance, for no apparent reason other than to allow access for site construction. Finally, the Epping Society also objects on the grounds that the proposed works would be detrimental to the health of the tree, and that no reasons or indeed a tree report have been submitted. There is a report associated with the proposed redevelopment of the house, the demolition and the rebuilding of the house, and within that report was recommendations to carry out some crown raising of lowest 3 limbs. And in the context of the size of the tree, the form it holds, as you can see, the lifting of trees, and in particular lime, which has a habit to produce pendulous, drooping, and down-swept branches to low levels, even to the ground. The proposal isn't likely, in my opinion, the council's opinion, that would be grossly detrimental to the tree's health or appearance. The fact that the tree is growing close to the front boundary, with the ability to extend quite a lot over the pavement and towards the road, it is considered reasonable that some management might be performed. The trees benefited from being very naturally grown and not having had the often extensive pruning that can disfigure trees. In fact, you might be able to see the tree in the verge, which has been managed by highways as a street tree. There is a significant truncation of the large limbs. They rapidly diminish, and the height has been reduced. I think it may partly be naturally, that might have occurred through through wind blow. But comparatively speaking, clearly the lime tree is a finer specimen with a nice hierarchy of branches gracefully ascending. And relatively speaking, the amount of canopy foliage in terms of volume that will be removed is relatively small at around 17%, which isn't, I think, likely to cause the death of the tree. So in summary, the recommendation to councillors is that we do allow pruning. I have modified the proposed conditions that would be attached to the permission if it were to be granted to only branches under 65 millimetres in diameter and a maximum height above ground level of 5 metres. So I'm happy to answer questions, and if I've missed any key pieces of information out, I'm sure I can try and fill you in due course.
Thank you very much indeed. We have one speaker, and this is Councillor Nigel Avey from Epping Town Council.
Thank you, Chairman. Well, on hearing Mr. Hillier's representations and the proposed condition, if it's acceptable to the committee, I'd be happy on behalf of the Town Council to withdraw our objection.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm sure that is acceptable to the committee. Thank you. Well, members, the recommended decision is to grant permission with conditions. Who would like to start? So, Councillor Phillip first.
Chairman, point of order, I guess.
Yeah.
If the Town Council has withdrawn their objection, does this now not revert to delegated powers and goes back to the officer at this stage?
There. If I could just ask Councillor Avey, was that a conditional withdrawal or an outright withdrawal?
Well, it was a suggestion of a way forward. If the committee were to accept the condition proposed by Mr. Hellier, then I'd be happy to withdraw our objection. If they're not willing to accept it, then we still object.
I'm sure Councillor Phillip will remind us...
Just to make Councillor Phillip's life more difficult, I suspect.
Chairman, I'm quite convinced that the conditions that Mr. Hellier referred to are the ones that are actually called out on page 44. It says quite clearly in condition 2, the branches only up to 65 millimetres and the 5 metre clearance above ground level to give statutory clearance to the highways. So I think that's part of the application that we see in front of us. Therefore, Councillor Avey's requirement for the conditions being there has been met, and therefore, by default, I think he's withdrawn his objection.
Right, Vivienne.
I'd just like to say that on page 44 of the agenda, it says the application is before this committee since the recommendation is for approval, contrary to an objection from a local councillor and at least one non-councillor resident. I think if it had only been the Town Council, then we could do that.
Councillor Phillip?
Chairman, if I remember the Constitution correctly, the requirement without a Town Council is for 5 objections, so it would fail on that one. I'm quite happy if we just want to take it straight to the vote and vote it through, that would be probably the easiest approach.
I think it may be certainly the quickest to get a resolution at this time. Councillor Macready, are you coming back on this, yes?
Yes, if you don't mind, but I think most of what I was going to say has already been addressed. I think you all got the idea that I'm a tree warden and I really like trees and want to protect trees. So I'm probably going to really surprise you all tonight. But trees do need to be managed. And when this came to Epping Town Council, we obviously have less information than when it comes to District Council. And I understand we did not have an arboriculturalist report, which is why I would have voted against the application. But by the time it comes to Plans East, we have more information and we have the report from the arboriculturalist. I respect him. He knows far more about trees than I do, and his knowledge is far superior to mine. So I endorse the conditions, but I wonder who will check if they are adhered to. I think the conditions are really good, but who's going to stop somebody just coming and chopping more things down than they should? Anyway, therefore, I support this application. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I know the answer to this one as well. Actually, the best enforcement officers are the public, and in your case, a volunteer tree officer who I'm sure will keep an eye on this one very closely. Yes, Councillor Phillip.
Chairman, if I could add to that, condition 1 requires that the applicant give 5 days notice of the work taking place. And given the strength of feeling we've heard on the committee, I'm sure someone like Mr Hellier would be keen to make sure that the lime tree was treated properly.
I think we're relying on you, Councillor Macready. In which case, members, I think we've got so far. Let's make a decision while it's here in front of us. All those in favour of granting permission with... Yes, oh, you're voting. We're granting permission with conditions.
Unanimous, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed. Planning permission is granted. Thank you, Mr Hellier, for talking to us tonight. It's been most helpful and useful.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, all.
Right, we will now go on to item 11, which is application 2406. I'm going to pronounce this as the Wind, but I don't know if that's right.
The Weend, Chairman.
The Weend, is it? The Weend, right. We did discuss that earlier, Jerry and myself. It's the Weend. Thaden Boys. Joey, would you like to talk us through this
Yes, thank
one?
you, Chairman. Mr Prince, who's the case officer, will be taking us through this one, and I'll be moving the slides as he indicates. So over to Alistair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Members, the application before you involves the erection of a part single, part two-storey rear and side extension at 5 The Weend in Thaden Boys. The application site is a two-storey semi-detached dwelling located on the eastern side of the Weend, which is a residential cul-de-sac in Thaden Boys. There are no listed buildings attributed to the site, and it is not within a conservation area. The site is not within the Metropolitan Greenbelt. This slide that Jerry's put us onto now shows an aerial view of the site in context with other surrounding dwellings, from which the public access way can be clearly seen adjacent to the site. Next slide, please. So here, members, is the existing ground floor plan, which includes the dwelling and the detached single-storey garage within the site, which is located along the northern boundary of the site. Next slide. And here is the existing first floor plan. So as you can see, there is an existing single-storey extensions protruding to the rear of the site and a small extension to the side as well. Next slide. So here you can see the existing roof plan, where you can clearly see the existing flat-roofed side extension at first floor level. And here is the existing front elevation. So you can see in more detail the side extension and the detached garage as well to the side. And this slide shows the existing side elevation. And here is the existing rear elevation, which also includes the garage to the side of the site. So this slide shows the proposed ground floor plan. So the single-storey rear extensions are broadly similar in footprint to the existing ground floor extensions as seen previously on the existing drawings, and also note how the two-storey extension is orientated away, from the existing dwelling, which runs parallel to the north boundary of the site. And this slide shows the first floor plan, so the proposed first floor plan. So again, you can see how the two-storey extension orientates itself away from the existing dwelling, as well as the 45-degree line from the neighbouring window at first floor level, showing that it won't encroach in regards to loss of light to neighbouring dwellings. So here you can see the proposed roof plan, where you can see the alterations that are made to the existing flat roof by adding a hipped roof in its place, as well as extending along the roof of the proposed two-storey extension. So here you can see the proposed front elevation. So you're able to see the alterations to the flat roof in more detail, with the two-storey addition extending back into the site. I should point out here that the materials that are proposed externally would match the existing dwelling. This slide shows the proposed side elevation with additional windows at first floor level, and these windows would serve bathrooms and would not be serving habitable rooms. So here you can see the proposed rear elevation, which again shows the relation of the two-storey extension to the rest of the building. So it extends away from the main dwelling. The small window installed at first floor level, which can be seen more centrally here. Yeah, thank you, Jerry. Also serves a bathroom. There's also a Juliet balcony at first floor level to the rear, which views directly down the rear garden of the site, and doesn't view into any side neighbours. So this slide shows the existing and proposed street scene elevations, with the existing street scene at the top and the proposed street scene at the bottom. And here is a photograph of the front of the site, so you can clearly see the flat-roofed side extension, as well as the garage, detached garage existing in the background there. And this slide shows the side elevation of or part of the side elevation of the site. And here is another view of the site taken from the public access way, facing back onto the site, with the detached garage in the foreground. And this slide shows the relationship between the application site on your left, as you're viewing it, the public access way, and Sixter Weend on the right-hand side. This photograph shows part of the street scene with the application site on the far left-hand side. It's possible to see the relationship between those buildings. Oh, sorry, Sherry. So here you can see a bird's eye view of the site as seen from the northeast, facing west. And finally, here you can see a bird's eye view of the site as seen from the west, facing northeast.
Okay, thank you very much. We have two speakers. The first is Councillor Peter Gooch of Thaden Boys Parish Council.
Good evening, Chairman, members. I'll be fairly brief because this is all about design. The Parish Council have no objection to this property being extended at all. It's whether you are happy as a committee that this falls within planning policy. DBE 10 of the current plan actually says that residential extensions should be in context and complement the existing building. We put it to you that this clearly does not. This is a semi-detached property, and this two-storey side element, which projects out at an awkward angle, is just contrary, we suggest, to that policy. It is some 8.5 metres deep. You'll notice on those pictures just shown to you that there are no other properties
in this area, or indeed the village, which allow a two-storey side extension to be at that awkward angle. There are many very good examples of two-storey side extensions of a more traditional design. And this is one of the traditional properties. There are other properties in the Weald, but this is a traditional, which Councillor Phillip will acknowledge, as needs to be properly, traditionally extended. Our view is that planning policy is designed to stop this type of application rather than allow it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Andrew Shealy via Zoom, who is the applicant's agent.
Thank you very much. I'm aware that some of the things I may say may repeat on what Mr. Prince has already discussed, but I'll read my statement as is just to cover all the particulars, if that's okay. So thank you for the opportunity to speak. My statement will briefly point out particulars relating to the proposal that will hopefully assist the committee making a positive decision today in terms of granting planning permission. The site is a semi-detached single dwelling set at the end of a close on the corner with displayed boundary lines, making the site significantly wider to the rear than it is at the front. The depth of the garden is 30 metres approximately from the rear line of the proposed extension, as well as having a maximum width of approximately 33 metres at its widest point. So it makes the site quite unique in that sense. The proposed extension, if approved, would still leave usable undeveloped garden of over 800 square metres. And it's clear, in my opinion, that the proposed extension would not be disproportionate or overbearing to the site and or its surroundings on this basis. The site is flanked on both sides by neighbouring homes. Number 6, the Wind, is the semi-detached neighbour. The proposed extension is set away from the boundary by 3.6 at its closest point and 7 metres at the rear of the extension. It is angled away from the boundary and does not come close to any 45-degree line taken from neighbouring windows. Thus, sight lines in natural daylight are not affected at all to number 6. Number 4, which is the detached neighbour, is located some 10 metres plus away from the proposed extension. The proposed alleyway is over 5 metres away, and between the extension and the alleyway, there is a single-storey garage with pitch roof over that is on the application site. The proposed extension projects out parallel to the boundary on this side and projects only to the rear line of the existing garage on the boundary with the alleyway. This creates a continuous build line to the rear of the property in line with the garage with no other projecting structure. There have been some concerns raised about the extension being visible from the public alleyway, and I believe it's worth noting that at the opposite end of the alleyway, numbers 3 and 5 Dukes Avenue, which the alleyway opens out onto, have both constructed two-storey side extensions up to the alleyway boundary, with the external walls of those extensions replacing the boundary fences, and both have been constructed in the last 2 years and are clearly highly visible thus from the alleyway. The 2D drawing submitted to support this application cannot truly reflect the context of the elevations and the fact that the proposed extension will be splayed following the boundary line on that side and significantly set back from the front elevation street scene. On 2D elevations, we appreciate we need to show what the extension will look like for the benefit of the proposed plan application. And this may appear bulky at face value, but in reality, the splayed setback nature of the proposed extension will mean it will feel submissive to the parent property and will not be a dominant factor from the street scene. Materials will mesh existing as mentioned before. I would request the planning committee kindly consider the proposed extension in context to the overall site and see that the proposed works would not unduly affect the site or its surroundings. Many thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. Your timing was excellent. Can I just ask, could we have the floor plan, the site plan shown up again, please, Jerry? Okay, thank you. And just one update. I noticed in our papers it said a number of the neighbours were consulted, 10, but no comments were received from any of them. Is that correct? There were no comments. Yeah, no comments. Okay. The one you had just before would have been, I think, perhaps slightly better, but that's it, that one. Okay, it's an unusual application. Well, members, the recommendation is to grant permission, and Councillor Phillip, you're on first.
Thank you, Chairman. I came to this application having read the report previously. in a very balanced state of mind as to whether it was actually which way to go. Having seen the presentation and being very familiar with the Weend and indeed the path down the side, which is one of the routes that I take to walk out into the countryside, I do know this very well. I would certainly agree with the parish council in that I'm not against an extension to this building. However, I think what we have here will have a significant impact on the street scene as you come down the Weend. I noted that the parish council referred to policies in the existing local plan, but I'd actually looked at the policies in the submission version of the plan, which, as we know, has gone through main modifications. It echoes some of what was said in our existing local plan, and in DM9, it says that the council will require all development proposals to be design-led and relate positively to their context. Adding to that, they also need to look at the design standards to relate positively to the locality, having regard to the form prevailing around the site. And indeed, in DM10, it also talks in terms of residential extensions that they will be required to respect or complement the form, setting, period and detail of the original buildings. I think, having seen the report and heard what the officer had to say, listened to the parish council and to the applicant's agent, I feel currently that there is no way that I can support this as something appropriate for this particular petition in the Weend. But before I take any other approaches, I shall listen to what my fellow councillors say.
Thank you. Other councillors? Councillor MacIver.
Thank you, Chairman. I completely agree with Councillor Phillip. I think this is a very balanced application, actually. However, I've took note of where the property is actually located on that road, and of course it is right at the end of the road, and therefore, and I will rely on Councillor Phillip to completely correct me, because I know he will if I'm wrong. Of course, it's a two-way road, and I assume you go round it. That's my interpretation of the picture. So actually, it's only from one direction that this is going to potentially have a detrimental impact. And when you are going down that straight road where this property is situated at the end, I don't see how the plans for this extension are much different from the other extensions that some of the neighbouring properties have. And then, of course, if you're on the other side of the road, you're not looking at it anyway. That was just my first point. And the second point I was going to make is perhaps, I must admit I've not been sitting on these benches for as long as some other councillors, but this is the first styled rear extension of this nature that I've ever seen. And perhaps this is the way that extensions may be done in the future. I don't know. It's not a design I've ever noticed before. It is different to traditional extensions. Being that the property is quite dated, one might expect one would prefer a more traditional extension at the back, but that is not for us to judge. And bearing in mind there are no neighbours from, I understand the parish council have made a contribution, but there are no neighbours, despite there being so many consulted, that have a real grievance with it. I think those are the voices that would be important if I was to change my mind, and they seem to be silent. I'm mindful to support it, but I do really sympathise that this is a very unusual, not necessarily aesthetically pleasing extension. There could be things done to improve it. But from a planning perspective, I'm finding it difficult to find a reason why I couldn't support the application.
Thank you. Councillor Phillip?
Councillor MacIver is quite right. I'm quite happy to come back and correct where he's not correct. Unfortunately, the Weend is one of those funny roads. Yes, it does look as if it would be a loop round, but actually you're able to drive down either side of that road to approach it. Right. And what you cannot see from either from what we've seen tonight or from the site plan is that this road leads directly on from Baldock's Road, so you actually get to see all the way down it as you come down Baldock's Road, and you would see this for quite a long way. And just to correct Councillor MacIver again, I think when I was referring to policies DM9 and DM10, those are planning reasons why we could
Right.
refuse.
I was actually going to ask whether the road was two-way or one-way, and you've answered that. Thank you. Other councillors? Oh, Janet Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't hear everything that Councillor McIver said, but I think he was talking about the view looking down the Weend. It's going to be very obtrusive. As you look down the Weend, you see the two houses at the end of on the bend at the end. This is going to be sticking out right on the left-hand side. It's going to be very obtrusive and very out of keeping. So I agree that two-storey extensions can be done really nicely, but this one is not in keeping at all, and I won't be supporting it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do any of the photographs show us any better, Jerry? I don't know whether they do, really. Councillor Hadley.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just looking at Google Earth on both sides of the road, and it doesn't stand out at all. Especially on the left-hand side, you wouldn't even notice the extension until you get outside the next-door neighbour. On the right-hand side of the road, there's a few trees in the middle there, and it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb at all to me.
Right, clearly a difference of opinion there as to the view, although that photograph is very useful.
In the summer, Chairman.
Do you want to come back?
I was going to say that the photograph that we have there and the one that is clearly visible in Google Earth is done when the trees are in full leaf. There are a good 4 to 5 months of the year where that is not the case.
Right. This is, of course, a very peculiar site in the fact that it's like a cheese. It's shaped like a cheese, which means whichever way you line yourself up, you're going to be out of line with something. And I'm not quite sure how councillors will wish to view that. Any other councillors wish to speak? Well, members, we may have to go straight to a vote then. The recommended decision is to grant permission with conditions. All those in favour, please show.
Five, Chairman.
4? 5, I thought. 5? 5.
Councillor Vaz, did you have your hand up? 4?
4,
yeah. Yeah, 5.
Yep, 5. Those against?
Seven.
And abstentions?
3.
In which case, the application is lost. But Councillor Phillip.
In that case, Chairman, I believe I probably need to propose refusal of this application on the grounds of going against policy DM9 sections A and D and DM10 paragraph E in terms of its the design not fitting in with the surroundings,
Okay,
not respecting its locality.
You're happy with that?
Yes, I'm hearing you're saying it's basically because of its position, size, bulk, mass, it's incongruous in the street scene. Is I think what you're within that and within the new local plan policies as well.
Yes, I was trying to be somewhat less generic than we might usually do in terms of bulk and massing and saying the design. It's the design aspect that is not fitting. So you could potentially have something of a similar size if it was oriented slightly differently, so that it didn't have the same jarring effect on the locality. And as I say, I went back to DM9 section D, paragraph D, section 2, the form and scale particularly prevailing around the site. So it's those planning policies.
Yes, I understand what yes, Councillor Phillip is suggesting.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Chris Whitbread. In which case, all those in favour of refusal on the grounds put forward by Councillor Phillip, please show.
$12.
Against?
None.
And abstentions?
3.
Okay, in which case, that is, refusal is carried.
Chairman, can we just note that we don't have an objection to the principle of an extension, even at two stories there, provided the design's better?
Yes. Okay, that will be in the minutes anyway, will it not, Vivienne?
No, it's up to the planning officer to put that in.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes, it will be in the minutes.
Yes, it will be in the minutes. Yes, I think that's the important thing. Okay. Whoever writes them, long as it is in there. Members, item 12 is exclusion of public and press. I don't think we're excluding many people here tonight. This is our last meeting of 2021. Can I thank all of the councillors for their assistance during the course of the year? It's not always run smoothly. The IT has let us down substantially on a number of meetings, and yet we've struggled through, and you've all been very gracious in accepting that it hasn't always gone to plan. And could I also thank officers, both from Democratic Services and from the Planning Department, for their assistance in all our meetings and making sure that the applications and the outcomes are very clear to all of us. And in which case, apart from wishing you all a happy Christmas and a prosperous new year, I'm going to close the meeting at 8:20. Thank you.